Hello, everyone, and welcome to sorry.
These are hard words. Whoever came up with this,
I was the one who came up with this, but okay.
Space Smurfs,
Space Smurfs,
Smurf.
Space Smurf.
Space Smurf.
Space Smurfs,
Space Smurf.
Space Smurf.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Space Smurfs Season 3. And this is your wannabe talk show host, Elena Joseph, and you're watching Space Smurfs Season 3, Episode 6. So, this month in July, we are actually celebrating the second year anniversary of Space Smurfs. And before we go into today's episode, I would like to take a moment to appreciate the journey that we have had in the last 2 years, starting from the small Clubhouse platform back in 2021 with my colleagues from Maposa. And then in 2022, we actually moved out to be an audio and video podcast with my co-host Pooja then. And now in 2023, we are back with season 3, and we are almost halfway through this year with a lot of amazing hosts, a lot of interesting talks, and a lot of experts as well sharing their wisdom and knowledge about the space sector and what their experiences are in the domain with you all. And thank you so much for those people who have supported us, who are following us, and who have been part of this amazing 2 years journey. It has been a great journey so far, and thank you so much for making Space Moms something at least. So I hope this support will continue and we will grow into a much more bigger family in the future, and hopefully we will have more and more seasons in the sector as well. Anyway, moving ahead. So as always, we today also have a very interesting topic to discuss. And in the last few episodes of this season, we have discussed a lot about the experimental stuff that's happening about space medicine, microbiology in the space, what is happening, why do we need to learn about exoplanets, things like that. But there is a common thread for all those things happening in the orbit. Let's say, like for the space assets that is revolving around the orbit. So, if you're a space buff, you might have gotten an idea about what exactly am I talking about here. So if you are not a space buff, I will bring you in an easy reference. So this movie called Gravity, where Sandra Bullock is playing an astronaut who is trying to come down to Earth after their space platform got hit by moving space debris. While the movie does not actually showcase how scary the situation is, it showcases the story of how she is coming back to Earth. The situation is much worse. So, space debris is a very hot topic at the moment, and it affects all the satellites, irrespective of any nation or how much valuable the satellite is, or even like what is the satellite doing. Basically, it can be used for military purpose or anything. It need not have to be also a satellite. It can be anything. Even the International Space Station can also be affected by the space debris. I think it has already been affected by space debris. Anyway, I'm not going to talk a lot more about what is it and how everything is. So today, in this episode, we are going to talk everything about space debris. And for that, I'm also happy to mention that for this episode, I'm glad to have one of my good friends here as our expert. And this is Mr. Ananthu Krishna from Digantara, who will be joining us today. And Ananthu, welcome to the show.
Hello there. Thank you so much for that invite. And yeah, I'm excited. And congrats on your 2 years of Space Smurfs. And
yeah,
and it's also 2 years for me at Digantara, so it's a good time to do this. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So, yeah, of course, we will have to discuss more about what is Digantara also doing in the space debris, or how are they connected. But anyway, congratulations for your work anniversary as well. It's great. And of course, this is one of those times when we both are being so formal with each other. It's a bit awkward, I have to admit, but yeah. So we have been friends. So if you guys don't know, I also interned with Digantara in last year for 3 months. So that's when I came to know about Ananthu and a few of our friends from the company. And yeah, it has been an interesting journey with this guy over here, and really interesting. I will not spill the beans. You don't have to worry. Yeah. So moving ahead, let's go into the episode today. And I know a lot about you, about how you came into the Kantara, what you're doing here, and also what you were doing before as well. But for the audience, it will be nice and interesting to know more about what you have been up to, and also like what you studied before joining the Kantara, and also, yeah, what you're exactly doing in the space sector. Yeah, over to you.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Ananthu, and I am right now working as mission design
Mhm.
engineer in Digantara. And little bit about me, my background. So I grew up in the state of Kerala in India, and ever since childhood, I was very much interested in space, like most kids are. But then I decided to take it seriously and did aerospace engineering, which is like the one of the
Mm.
toughest branches of engineering.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was one hell of an experience. And so I did my bachelor's in aerospace from Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology.
Mhm.
And to be honest, I was probably not that good at most part of it, and I was only interested in some subjects like orbital mechanics and things like that. So I tend to have I found that I seem to have an intuition for orbits, and I was good at programming. So it just came to me that mission analysis and mission design seems to be the right path for me. So and luckily enough, I got an opportunity at a startup to work on mission design right after my college, and within a year, I got this opportunity at Digantara. And Digantara, a little bit about Digantara. So what we are building at Digantara is something like Google Maps, but for space. Now, just like Google Maps have mapped our cities and the roads and traffic, what we are essentially doing is we are mapping all space objects
Yeah.
and creating an infrastructure layer for navigation in space. So for any activity that happens in space, all kinds of space operations, space tourism, our solution will act as a foundation to help anyone to move from point A to point B in space. So, and this involves a lot of space debris, tracking them, and things like that. And I was very much interested in this particular role because even during my college, I have worked towards one mission for removing space debris, which was during my first year itself, which was my first mission design exercise that I did during my first year. So
Destiny.
yeah, it felt like that. So the dots were connecting very well. So I was pretty much interested in that. So and yeah, it was fun. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really amazing what the Kantara is doing, to be honest. I mean, and also space debris, like I mentioned, it's a common threat to every other space satellite or space asset that's revolving around the Earth. And like how these satellites or assets are going around the Earth, the space debris is also traveling. And it's a dangerous situation, to be honest, especially when all these satellites and assets that we are sending to space like cost us billions and millions of
Exactly.
dollars.
Right.
You cannot put it on a risk at all. And also, even with sending satellites, people are debating on Earth, why are we sending these satellites? And especially in that kind of a scenario, you cannot risk it. Anyway, I'm not going to talk a lot about why this space debris is a very debatable topic at the moment and how is it affecting the space assets. So over to the next question for us today. So why is the concept of space debris so important at the moment and how is it affecting our space assets? Yeah.
Okay, so the thing is that if you look at the numbers, so space debris is essentially any object that we have left in space, right? So there are lots of objects. If you consider objects above 1 centimeter in size, there is a million of them. And in space, things are moving really, really fast, around 16 kilometers per second or something like that. So something as small as 1 centimeter is enough to completely, disrupt a satellite. So that is where the problem is. And among these 1 million objects, we have barely like 4% of them tracked. So the risk is very, very huge. So that is where it's a very relevant topic right now to try to track more and more objects with more and more accuracy, because even right now the objects that are tracked, they are not tracked with the level of accuracy that it should be tracked. So we don't know exactly where they're going to be. And so that leads to a lot of uncertainty for satellite operators. Is their
Yeah.
satellite asset at risk or not? So that kind of an uncertainty is created. So yeah, like you mentioned, they are $1 million assets. You cannot just leave it at such high risks. So that's why it's
Exactly.
becoming a more and more relevant topic since, now we are launching hundreds of satellites every year.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, like I came to know like very recently that SpaceX already have launched like around 56 satellites this year itself. It's already been like what, half of 6 months now, and it's already 56. So God knows. And
exactly.
also like nowadays we are so dependent on all these space-based applications. If something happens to any of the space assets, it's going to affect, I don't know, the national security, if I have to speak from that point, and also like anything, like even your day-to-day telecommunications or network, it will all be affected, right? So when something hits on you with that kind of an impact, of course, all the satellites and as space assets are very fragile. Also, it's not made of Superman stuff. So
Yeah.
definitely it will be completely destroyed. So I I totally resonate with what you mentioned. And like I mentioned, so when I was working with Digantara only, I came to know about something called space weather. I only knew about tropical weather, I don't know, and other weather that we usually say, but I never knew space weather, especially when space is considered as vacuum. How are we bringing this term space weather into it? Well, now I know what exactly is space weather and how it also affects space debris. But over to you, Ananthu, to explain like what is space weather and how it acts on or plays an impactful role with the space debris issues. Yeah.
Yeah, so like you rightly mentioned, space is vacuum, and everything we refer to as weather on Earth is related to the atmosphere, like the
Yeah.
temperature, rain, winds. So when there's no atmosphere, then what is the space weather, right? So in space, what we have is mostly charged particles, radiation, and stuff like that. All of
Okay.
this originate from the sun
Mm.
and from the intergalactic space. So,
Oh, okay.
sun is essentially a nuclear reactor. It spews out a lot of matter, radiation, charged particles towards the Earth constantly. And
Okay.
all of this is, interacting with the Earth's magnetic field, which is like a shield for us. So we are, protected from a lot of this radiation because of this magnetic field. But, this charged particles get trapped in the magnetic field, and it creates a whole lot of, phenomena near
Okay.
the Earth, in the space, and on Earth. All of these phenomena is collectively referred to as space weather. So some of the effects of space weather will be in the form of, the radiation experienced by satellites, the charging experienced by them, like the surface gets charged, or internal charging happens to satellites and things like that. And even on
Oh.
Earth, you see aurora that happens because of space weather. The charged particles interact with the atmosphere, and you get these beautiful lights.
Mm.
Those are
That's,
some.
I mean, the Aurora part I didn't knew, but it's really interesting to hear about it. So next time when you guys see an Aurora video, or if you get to see it in real life, lucky you, then we know that it's relating to space weather and all these charged particles coming or affecting the Earth's magnetic field and everything. And when it comes to space debris, how does it impact? Like, does it affect the trajectory of the space debris, or
Yes.
you mentioned about how it affects the satellites and assets. So
Right.
how come it's affecting the space debris? Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the effects of space weather is that it affects the upper atmosphere. So it's not exactly fully vacuum in space. There is like a very tiny amount of atmosphere.
Okay.
And what happens is that as the radiation levels from the sun changes, the atmosphere heats up and cools down, and that density level changes up and
Oh,
down.
okay.
So the amount of drag force that is experienced by the satellite, it changes. So,
Oh, okay.
that the amount of drag force acting on it will affect the trajectory of it. So
Oh,
that's how space weather kind of acts on the, prediction of orbits of space debris. And I think last year or so, SpaceX lost like around 40 satellites because of this effect. there was a sudden solar flare, and then the atmospheric density suddenly shot up, and the satellites re-entered the Earth. So that kind of
So,
stuff also happens.
yeah, and just so the viewers know, there are existing space debris tracking being done by different countries. And so, from what I am understanding from your answer, is also that it's also inevitable to assess the space weather so that the tracking will be more accurate. Is that what you're pointing at?
Not tracking exactly, prediction. So the prediction of the orbit
Ah,
will know where they will be in a future time. So
mm.
that will be more accurate the better you model space weather.
So that helps with the maneuvering of satellites or space assets before it actually hits your
Right.
end. Okay. Yeah, that's so interesting. Even though I interned with them, it's always fascinating to hear it again and again about all these things. So, yeah, thank you so much for that. And before we move on to the next question, we have Space Mode Season 3, Episode 5, Would You Rather? And which is also our today's experts' nightmare. So before when I approached Ananthu about this particular episode, the one thing he asked me is that, can we not do that part where you go around asking questions to people? So
We call it the
eh,
fun part. I don't know where the fun is though.
thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, you signed up for this and you have
Yeah.
to do it. So this is Would You Rather Space Mode Season 3, Episode 5, and we are doing it with our expert for today, Mr. Ananthu Krishna. Ananthu, are you ready?
Yep, let's do this.
Okay. Would you rather be the first human on Mars or the last human on Earth?
Well, definitely the first human on Mars. It's very sad to be the last human on Earth. I don't want to be that.
Yeah, I mean, even being the first human on Mars, you can always come back to the Earth after the mission is done, if I'm not
Unlikely.
wrong.
I feel like both are situations where you're going to die anyway. We don't know.
Wow,
Let's
the optimism. Okay. Would you rather travel to the center of the universe or travel to the center of the Earth?
definitely center of the universe. I'm a all space guy, not very much interested on Earth.
Yeah, he's not interested in humans, people. He's interested in
Yeah,
aliens. So
right.
anyway, in that case, would you rather meet an alien or be an alien?
Oh God. Okay. Uh, well, if the alien is a very smart, intelligent being, then definitely I would like to be that. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not very much of a believer in that. There might be
Oh.
life outside, but I'm not very sure about intelligent life outside.
Hmm.
So if it's not intelligent, obviously I don't want to be that alien.
But one of our previous experts who came to the show, he mentioned that all of us are aliens, considering the whole universe.
Right.
Like we are also technically an alien, and yeah.
But come on, we are
So
talking, so we know what we are referring to.
okay, yeah. Would you rather be a Martian or be a Kryptonian? I know the answer for this.
Yeah. Definitely a Martian, but mostly because I don't know anything about Kryptonian.
It's okay. Yep. Would you rather choose to have the ability to be resistant to the space environment or have the ability to travel into space like superheroes?
I think if I'm allowed to break the laws of physics, then definitely travel through space like superheroes, at the speed
I
of
mean,
light.
being a superhero is equivalent to breaking the laws of physics,
Right.
technically.
Yeah.
So I think,
That sounds fun.
yeah. Would you rather get sucked into the black hole or float into the universe?
Okay. So I think I would prefer to get sucked into the black hole because
Mhm.
floating into the universe is so, boring. There's nothing happening. I know it's a painful death into the black hole, but at least you can see a black hole, which is not
But
something anyone has seen, right?
yeah, sort
Technically.
of. Would you rather have a holiday to an unknown planet or take a scenic tour to the moon and back?
Am I going to come back from the planet? Yes,
Yeah,
then
of
definitely
course.
the planet. Yeah,
I think we have seen enough of the moon, right?
right.
Okay, and the last one, would you rather freeze time or travel through time?
I would rather travel through time. because that sounds more fun. I can go back in time, which is technically impossible considering physics. I mean, of course, freezing time is also impossible, but it just sounds more fun. I can go back and test the grandfather paradox.
Okay. I mean, all that I hear when you mention going back in time or travel through time is this series called Dark. Oh my God, that series was so messed up. Anyway, and as you know, and my friend over here is a very good keyboardist, and he also plays guitar as well. So I have a fun question for you, Ananthu. Uh, if you know the answer, act like you don't know the answer, okay?
Okay.
Which is a planet that in the solar system that is related to music
I feel
or
like
which has a fine tuning?
this is like one of your dumb jokes, I think.
Of course.
Please go ahead, tell the answer.
It's Neptune.
Oh God. Okay, next question.
Thank you so much for the motivation. I'll keep on. I'll continue doing this.
Sure.
Anyway, so that's about with a fun session right now, and we will move on. Yeah,
Good to
we are
know.
done. Moving on, we have the fourth question for this episode. So we talked about space debris and how it is affecting, and also about the impact of space weather on it. But there is also something called space situational awareness, SSA. So what is space situational awareness, and how is the SSA helping in dealing with space debris? Maybe a little bit of connecting with what you're doing with Digantara as well.
Yeah, okay. So space situational awareness essentially refers to tracking all the objects in space and predicting how they are moving. That's what
Okay.
we refer to as space. In a silly way of explaining is, from the term itself, it's like the awareness about the situation in space, where situation refers to
Yeah.
all the objects where they are, and things like that, right? So, so essentially, solving the space debris problem is a complex one. It's not easy to bring down all the space
Course.
debris. The first
Yeah.
step towards that is to track them, to know where they are. So that's where space situational awareness is, helping us get towards, creating cleaner space. And so regarding my work at Digantara, so we are essentially right now all this tracking happens from ground-based systems using radars and telescopes. What we are trying to do is something different, which is we want to launch space-based sensors. So we will be detecting the space debris from another satellite. So my work kind of involves deciding parameters for the sensors and the orbits in which they are launched, so that we get maximum amount of objects detected and things like that. Yeah.
And space situational awareness also have a legal parameter or legal side to it as well, like with the long-term sustainability guidelines and other, let's say, international policies and law regime that helps with the responsible behavior of satellites or let's say space assets to reduce the formation of space debris in the future, and also how we can collect or track the existing space debris. So maybe more discussion about this we will be doing in the next episode, and you can definitely catch them on Space Smurfs Season 3, Episode 7. And also, along with what Ananthu mentioned, I think you guys are also building the first ground-based observatory in India for SSA, right? In Uttarakhand. So yeah, Digantara is also coming up with an observatory in Uttarakhand for tracking and detecting the space debris that is orbiting around the Earth, and it will be in Uttarakhand. So hopefully we will be able to see how it goes in the future, right?
Yes. And our goal is to, not focus on one source of data, because no one single source of data can solve the problem. It's like we need to get all kinds of data sources, ground-based, space-based, in different locations. We are kind of building a multimodal data pool, which will, power this space situational awareness solution.
Yeah, so at the moment, there are only a few countries who are looking into tracking and detecting the space debris, especially, of course, US will be there for sure. And there might be a few other countries as well. So I think this issue needs to be tackled together as a whole international community rather than a particular country, if I'm not wrong.
Right. So there should be a policy aspect to this where all
Mm.
countries get together and decide ways to solve this issue. And I think
Mhm.
there are some existing policies, like when you're
Mhm.
launching a satellite, you're supposed to show that you can bring it down within 25 years, which I think right
Yeah.
now is reduced to 5 years by FCC.
Yeah.
And you have to also show that that your satellite is not going to just blow up, or it's
Yeah.
not going to throw some object out of it and things like that. So that
Yeah.
these are some ways we can using policy solve some
Mhm.
part of this problem.
Yeah, and I think this conversation that we're having about space debris is a timely conversation as well, especially during the Chandrayaan launch. I think right after the Chandrayaan launch, there was a big chunk of space debris that was found in Australia, which is sort of mentioned that is from one of the missions that India conducted. So yeah, of course, these space debris definitely can fall into the earth and everything. So it's very reasonable for governments to work together and to solve, like you clearly mentioned, like to find ways to actually tackle this issue and find I don't know, safe space for our space assets, if I'm terming it correctly. But yeah, that was a very interesting talk about space debris. And as we are moving to the final question for this episode, it's not exactly about space debris. It's more a very open-ended question, as I would like to call. So, as you might have heard, Ananthu graduated from the Indian Institute of Space Technology in Trivandrum. And like he mentioned, he did aerospace engineering. So from his academic background itself, he has been connected with the space sector. And right after he graduated, he started working in the industry. And I'm pretty sure within your batchmates, there might be people who is currently working with ISRO as well, let's say government entities as well. So how is it like? Like now you're not a fresher, of course. You are 2 years into this company itself. So so how was it like to be a fresher and just join into the space sector? And also like when you look into working in the space industry in India and also with the government, what are the pros and cons you see? And a few pointers for the young engineers who are willing or who are trying to get into the space sector in these days. Yeah.
Okay, interesting question. So, like you rightly mentioned, IIST is kind of well knit with the ISRO community.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we have visited a lot of ISRO centers and
Mhm.
interacted with ISRO scientists. And yeah, a lot of my batchmates are ISRO scientists themselves.
Mhm.
And a few years back when I was, graduating, the space sector was not that much, and
Mhm.
a space job would essentially mean ISRO for most people.
Okay.
And so it's kind of a scary situation if you graduate and you're not going into ISRO. But I would say that I was lucky to, join a very
Mhm.
early stage startup, and yeah, luck played a lot of role there. But now the situation is kind of changed. There are a lot of booming startups
True.
who are hiring in a lot of roles and expanding rapidly. And
Mhm.
the space sector is in India is going to go huge in the coming few years. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
opportunities are definitely going up significantly. And with respect to the difference between the work in something like ISRO versus startup, I think what I would say is that ISRO is a big organization, and mostly I cannot speak for everyone, but I've seen the situation like it is difficult to feel uh, like you have ownership of the work that you do, or feel like
Mhm.
you have a huge impact there, because naturally it's a big organization which does a lot of huge things, and you will be working on a very small part of it. And
Yeah.
that is something that most people might feel if you're working in a big organization. But compared to that, if you're in a startup,
Mhm.
you'll be having a lot more responsibilities. You'll be taking up a lot more things, and you'll feel like you are doing something huge.
Mhm.
You'll have a lot more skin in the game, as you say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that might be a motivator for some people, but
Yeah.
it depends on the person. It depends, even in
Exactly,
ISRO, it
exactly.
depends on what you're working on. I cannot speak for everyone
Exa-
also, right?
Exactly, and I totally agree with you. I think ISRO, of course, the branding that it brings in you in your career, or in your resume, if you're working with them, is definitely huge. And of course, working with a startup is also coming with a lot of risk as well, especially with the current space ecosystem similar to that of India. So yeah, I think it's up to the individual, like you clearly pointed out, like how they want to see their career going up, and like with which entity they would like to work. It can be with ISRO, it can be with a startup. And of course, currently in the Indian government has also come up with the India space policy, and they have actually brought in a lot of opportunities for the Indian space startups as well to engage within the Indian government, but also with other foreign entities as well. So I think the space sector in India is coming to a fruitful a domain, or fruitful time at the moment. So working with ISRO or working with a startup will definitely bring in whatever you would like to do within the space sector. And yeah, anyway, thank you for that very insightful answer, actually. And also, we have come to the last few minutes of this podcast, of this episode. Sorry, of this episode. And at this moment, I would like to mention that thank you so much, Ananthu, for agreeing to be part of this podcast, and also, yeah, sharing your knowledge, working with your company, and also about space debris and everything. We wish you all the very success and amazing journey for your future endeavors.
Thanks a
Yeah.
lot. Thank you for inviting me. I genuinely had fun. Jokes apart. Yeah. Yeah.
Did
Thanks.
you
Thanks for that.
did you
Yeah.
have
Yes, I
fun?
did. Yes. I did. I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ananthu. So yeah, we are almost wrapping up the season 3, episode 6 of Space Moves. And until we see on next month, fourth Friday, you guys keep smurfing. Till then, bye bye.